just like that, it is our final main event live draft coverage of the year. I'm your host, Aiden LaCorey. Joining me as always, Dave Tripoli. It's been since April was, I think, our first stream of the Never Too Early Best Ball. Now it is here. It is the Sunday before opening kickoff. After tonight, we are just, 4 days away from the start of the Vegas live
Crazy.
event.
It'd be crazy if you think about 4 days till the season starts. All these drafts we've done, all these drafts, just this weekend that the FFPC has got done. I mean, it's insane that we're so close to the season. I mean, it's nuts.
It's great. It's
such a start to the season too. Like, you got 2 games of 2 marquee offenses. You know, starting off with the Chiefs and the Ravens, and then the Eagles and the Packers. I mean, there's no slouches. I mean, the NFL did good scheduling these games early, so it's going to be fun in these drafts. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, before the games actually start, are going to be wild. I'm telling you, I have a feeling Saturday drafts are going to be absolute bedlam.
That would be music to my ears. No, it's sort of, I mean, every year I guess we could say this, but it feels like this year in particular the ADP has been really volatile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last year I know we did with obviously the whole Jonathan Taylor situation, the Cooper Kupp injury, but so far between CD, Ayuk, the Chiefs receivers, there's just been a lot of things. And looking at boards from even a couple of weeks ago are drastically different than we are now.
It's different.
I'm going to start off with this though. So we enter Vegas with Jamar Chase still kind of in doubt. Feels like a clear top 6 has emerged. Like, it is always going to be in some order: McCaffrey, CD, Bijan, Brees, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra. Like, that's your front 6. And then the 7th spot, you could see AJ Brown, you could see Justin Jefferson, you see Jamar. But you think that top 6 is pretty solidified as we enter the final week before
I think the top 5 is definitely solidified. I think that 6th pick could be a range of anybody. I mean, St. Brown, Jefferson, Chase, Wilson, Brown. I've seen Barkley go 6. I've seen Taylor get up there. I haven't seen any of the tight ends get up there. But I'm pretty sure that top 5 will be pretty secure unless something goes real crazy in that first game. I think you're going to see that in most drafts in any order. I mean, you could see, maybe Jefferson getting up there. If Chase signs, he's probably going to get back up there. But I really feel like, the top 5 secure, that 6th pick, it'll be mostly St. Brown, but I feel like it could be, some wild cards put in there.
Yeah, I mean, even into that top 5, we just had a draft recently where we saw AJ Brown enter the top 5. We've seen people push up Justin Jefferson. And then if some clarity emerges on the Jamar Chase situation, he'll obviously quickly rise back up boards. Again, this was a guy who was a pretty consistent top 4 pick before his holdout and uncertain situation has kind of sent him tumbling down into the middle of the first. And we saw it last year. We're going to see it again. There's going to be people, I know for a fact, in Las Vegas who are going to be taking Garrett Wilson top 3, top 4 as they try and get some unique stats. Terp, I got to ask you, just in this first round, we talked extensively about the front end. The back end, you're kind of seeing this theme emerge. And I'm talking about picks 10, 11, 12, where people are feeling that's just has emerged as a spot that people are not liking. Let's say you're given a pick 10, 11, or 12. I'll even change it because 10 you could get your guy AJ Brown. Just 11 or 12.
11 or 12 are definitely the spots.
Those are the spots that people are struggling. Happens here again. We've talked about it at least every stream we've done over the last 2 weeks. It's always Taylor and Barkley. But putting you in their shoes, you have pick 11 or 12. What's your game plan going in?
It's a massive difference between now and Friday. Now, you hope one of those top 10 guys fall. You're just hoping that somebody doesn't, moves Jonathan Taylor up, moves Puka up. Puka's practicing 100%, and somebody just loves him and gets him up there. Maybe Gibbs, maybe Barkley, guys like that. And one of those guys fall. If you don't, to me, I'm pushing Marvin Harrison up. I think if I had a pick in this first round currently right now, one main event team, that was it. Marvin Harrison would probably be my 11th pick, and then Drake London would be my pick right after. I made a statement on the last show. I don't see a reason why you should go 2 tight ends. I don't think it gives you that big of an advantage unless those guys are tight end 1, tight end 2, which we know is probably unlikely. We know there's going to be some volatility at the position. We know some of these guys are going to bust, whether it's injuries, whether it's just, production slip. But, guys like Puka, I'm fine with. He's not a pick that I'm going to be excited about. Now on Friday, you are hoping for chaos in that game. You are hoping for 37-31. Kelsey Andrews, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, Mahomes, Jackson, all those guys is getting it all done. 20 plus points from all of them. Because Kelsey gets moved up to the first round, probably mid first round. Andrews, in my opinion, gets up there to the 1-2 turn. So if you're sitting there at 11 and 12, then it could be a little bit, a better spot for you because you might get a Jefferson fall, a Chase fall, a Wilson fall, a Brown fall, potentially two of them falling. So it all depends on where you're picking this week. I mean, like I said, if it's me, it's Harris, it's London, I could be talking to some of the tight ends as a secondary option, versus London. But to me, none of these running backs, to me, would be my pick.
So between this kind of trio, there's obviously McCaffrey, Bijan, and Brees have separated themselves. And then the second tier trio is Jonathan Taylor, Barkley, Gibbs. We talked about Barkley and maybe how Jalen Hurts, the Eagles offense, could restrict his fantasy value. And maybe he's a way better, despite being a talented fantasy player, Saquon Barkley is a guy who could project as a better real life impact than fantasy impact this year. We've talked about some of the flaws and issues that Jonathan Taylor has. Jahmyr Gibbs was going before both of these guys prior to his hamstring injury. Now, the issue is re-aggravation. He suffered multiple hamstring injuries in the past, 5 months? Yeah. He's on track to play week 1. He is an explosive player and one of the best offenses in the league. It goes back to a conversation you and me had on Friday's show when we did our special draftathon coverage, which is players have these negative news and their ADP dips, but then it comes out later that, hey, they're going to be fine for week 1, kind of status quo has been returned, but the ADP doesn't return. Yeah. Do you think it's, again, relative value? Jahmyr Gibbs, we were seeing at the 110, 111, but some of these teams, like, for example, Team 10 here, is able to pair A.J. Brown with Jahmyr Gibbs, which you weren't able to do prior to the news of his hamstring. Do you think Gibbs is we're going to look back as he should have been maybe the clear RB4 off the board and could be a nice little value for some of these teams?
Definitely a value. I mean, he's been all over the second round with the injury that came out. The thing you got to worry about with that is obviously re-aggravation, but also David Montgomery's not going anywhere. So that's my thing with Gibbs is like the way he gets to potential RB1 upside is if something happens to Montgomery and he's just a bell cow, which I don't know if he'll ever be if something happens to Montgomery. I think that's the case, but I don't think it's a dead certainty. I mean, you definitely have some wild cards there. I mean, Dan Campbell, we know exactly what we're getting out of him. He's going to run the football, a lot of play action. They have a lot of weapons on the outside, especially if Williams takes that next step. Do I have some Gibbs? I do. Do I have overweight Gibbs? No. To me, it's if you're picking 10 or if you're picking 11, 12, I have no issues if you take Jahmyr Gibbs. None whatsoever. I've done it. I've taken him 12. I've taken Saquon Barkley 11 in the main. Was I thrilled about it? No. We've talked about this numerous times. Barkley is not a target for me this year, but I was doing it with a partner, and that was one wish. So I gave him that wish, and then I took over the rest of the draft. So you take some chances sometimes at the end of this draft, but I feel like the Taylor Barkley start is very, very, very stale in these drafts. I feel like everybody has them, and I feel like now with ADP changing and draft positions changing, it kind of limits you where you're going to go with the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. It kind of boxes you in if a running back value falls because I know people can say whatever they want. You can win draft in any way, but 3, 4 running backs in your starting team is very, very, very risky. It could get you through a couple weeks, but long term, I just don't know if it's a winning recipe.
And I'll say this. You and me talked extensively in 2023, and Fantasy Mojo, our friend who compiles a bunch of amazing FFPC ADP tools, stack tools, talked about it extensively. Last year was the Mahomes and Kelsey stacks. And at some point, it's not worth it to draft Mahomes and Kelsey because everyone else does. Maybe it's just me basing it on just the drafts that you and me do weekly. But that Taylor and Barkley stack is starting to feel, as you said, perfect word, stale, because so many other people have it. So how are you going to diversify your team compared to all of these other stacks? Because it's just the most common thing that people are doing in that 1-2 turn.
You're going to be staring at the same guys most of the time in the third, fourth round. The Stebos, the Nico Collins, the Ayuks, the Devonta Smith, DK Metcalfs, and you're also could be staring at the Pachecos, the ETNs, and then you're going to stare at the tight ends, Pitts, Ingram, possibly Kittle. So how are you going to differentiate yourself? And I know in the main event, I don't really pay attention to that stuff. I know people, each have different opinions on what to do, but your job is to win the league. Your job is to win the league and then figure out a way to get to, a chance at $1 million and build your team that way. But you have to get to the league first. You have to get through the league. If you don't get through the league, you could have the coolest roster in the world and it doesn't matter. There's been so many rosters that I've had over the years that have came in 5th place or, went into the playoffs 3rd or 4th and lost in the championship that were loaded teams that could have made deep runs. But you got to get through your league. You need a lot of things to go your way. I just feel like the stale start of Barkley and Taylor just is not the way to do it.
I mean, and Terp, watch, as we're always open about our faults, watch Jonathan Taylor and Barkley both be top 5 running backs, and we have egg on our face for kind of not – we should clarify. We're not mocking that start in particular. It's just the amount that's being done.
It has zero to do with the start. Any start can win. I mean, we saw it last year. The guy who won $1 million, you don't really realize it until you actually look back at his roster. Mm-hmm. Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins. They were his first 2 picks. Justin Jefferson got hurt. T. Higgins, Joe Burrow got hurt. I mean, and you still figured out a way to get there and then get hot when it counted with all the right moves that he made and then have that sweat Monday night and get there.
Terp, question in the chat.
Are made of.
Terp, question in the chat for you from Jimmy Williams, and I already know your answer, but I want you to say, because I think we kind of maybe have some slight disagreement here, as Jimmy Williams says, have you guys also noticed that numerous times lately, and I would say I would agree with him, it has flipped in recent weeks, is that Chris Olave has been going before Drake London? And our thoughts. I mean, Terp, before you answer, it is a little bit odd that this was early on in the drafting process when the hype was rightfully surrounding London and the Falcons offense, that Drake London was an early 2nd round pick and he's kind of slowly fallen down for no really discernible reason. So in this draft, he goes at the 301. This draft, Chris Olave at the 208. So answer.
Drake London's all over the place in drafts right now. I'm honestly trying to figure out why. I know there's a lot of top end target competition there. Bijan, Pitts, but there's no other receiver there that gives me any worry whatsoever. And everybody calls Drake London the alpha. Well, if he's the alpha, why would he be going 3rd round? I mean, to me, it's just a massive value for team 1. I'm a Drake London guy this year. I pretty much was on no Falcons last year because of who. So Drake London, to me, this year, if he can get gelled with Cousins and things work out, which I think they will, I mean, I like Olave. I've come around on Olave more than I was earlier in the draft process. He's definitely a guy that I've added a lot late just because I don't want to get caught not having, if he is that alpha that we all thought he was going to be last year, and the Saints figure out a way to get him the ball a ton. I still have my doubts. I hate the coaching staff. I hate Derek Carr, but there is a chance that Olave is going to be that stud. So if he is, I want to have some. It definitely won't be high, crazy on him or anything like that. But I think definitely Olave has been going higher than London, and it's not crazy. I don't think it's nuts, but to me, it's London over Olave.
Real quick, just looking at the ADP data. Olave, over the last 3 days in the main event, Drake London has been going at the 207, Olave at the 301. But I don't disagree with Jimmy that multiple drafts that I've seen, it's been flipped. Terp, I'll say this. Complete agreement with you. This show is openly hatred towards Dennis Allen. Chris Olave, the worry is that he shapes up to be like what DJ Moore was, where he's a great receiver who puts up solid seasons, but just can never, necessarily get into that superstar fantasy tier because quarterback play or bad offenses hold him back. He has so many unrealized net air yards each year. It just sometimes feels, and why the reason I'm actually would be on Olave over London is because while both are in great opportunities, I do think that there is a chance for Olave. Like we've seen it with Olave, right? And if there's
Yeah.
just minor improvement from Derek Carr, which I think there is some hope there because it's going to be a tweaked and hopefully improved offensive system. And if he can just capitalize on a couple more of those explosive plays that Derek Carr just overthrew him, he would have been in for a way bigger season. I think both of them are in that same tier. London, I think, has the better quarterback, but I think he has better options also around him that could take away. I know Kamara's there, but like Olave, I think, is the guy. I'm not a huge Kamara believer this year. They're in that same tier. I don't think you can go wrong with either. I think Olave, I think, has a little bit of a safer floor, while London has the higher ceiling. So it's really just a preference based on your build. Terp, I want to talk about Team 3. They take Cooper Kupp at the 210. We talked about Kupp versus Puka right when Puka got hurt. We haven't discussed it since. When Puka got hurt, you and me, our conversation was in agreement. Hey, Cooper Kupp should be going closer to Puka even before this. And then obviously that has slowly happened. Puka has settled in as a early second round pick. Kupp has settled in as a late second. Where are we at with the Rams receiving room now that kind of everything is cleared up? We know that Puka is going to be right, but also Kupp got that rightful bump up that he really should have been. Cooper Kupp at some points was going in the 4th round, and now he's going in the 2nd, and nothing has changed besides a minor concern for Puka that kind of has quickly been quelled. So where are you at on the Rams receiver room now that their values are somewhat similar, both 2nd-round picks?
Cooper Kupp should be the guy, in my opinion. I mean, he's the guy that should be taking the leap in the ADP, and he is. And Puka, nice player, nice story last year, had a ridiculous season as a rookie. Obviously he gelled well with Stafford and McVay, and they love him there. But Cooper Kupp wasn't healthy last year. Cooper Kupp, I know everybody's like, oh, well, his age, he's going to start breaking down. I get all that. But to me, we've seen one of the best fantasy seasons ever with Cooper Kupp. And will he do that again? Probably not. But is it in the range of possibilities? It is. I mean, that offense is going to be buzzing. McVay is going to figure out a way to get these guys the ball. And it's going to be him. It's going to be Puka. And Stafford, we know, is a gunslinger. So I love Cooper Kupp where he's going. Puka is not a guy that I'm like crazy targeting. We'll have some, but Cooper Kupp's definitely a priority in drafts for me.
You know what's kind of interesting is those Rams receivers, and I'm not even going to talk about Kyron, but the Rams receivers have just such absurdly high ceilings. As you mentioned, Cooper Kupp is one of, since in the 2020s, has been one of the best fantasy receivers there is. But his downside is getting up there in age, was not great last year, and that was primarily due to multiple significant injuries that he suffered. So is he going to stay healthy this year? Can he return to form? On the other side, there's Puka Nacua, who had one of the, if not the best rookie receiver season ever. And, he looked like a monster, but he had injury issues in college. He already has suffered an injury here. And then on top of all that, Matt Stafford's been banged up all of training camp. What's his health going to be? Could you imagine if the Rams lose Stafford? I mean, both of these second.
It's definitely a worry. I mean, Stafford, another guy's getting up there in age. If something goes haywire with him, what happens to those guys? I mean,
yeah,
it's just quarterback. I don't really study backup quarterbacks. So
I want to say it's Garoppolo.
Yeah,
right?
It is Jimmy Garoppolo. You are correct, and that doesn't excite me at all. So hopefully that never happens, because
I know it sounds dumb. I'm just saying, for two guys, I mean, everyone has inherent risk. It just feels as though both of those receivers have their own injury risk. Cooper Kupp, you have a baked-in age risk, and on top of that, you already have a quarterback who's been banged up and missed time. So
Cooper Kupp's in there. There's a lot of guys who are risk-reward guys this year. I mean, we talk about some of the guys who are stale in draft, but these risk-reward guys are what's going to determine a lot of fantasy teams this year. You look at Cooper Kupp, you look at, Devon Achane, you look at Kyron Williams, you look at guys like that have so much. You could justify taking them at the 1-2 turn, all of them. You could also justify taking them in the 4th round. It's all in the range of possibilities, and we know Devon Achane could be the number 1 overall player to be drafted next year. It's possible if things go perfect.
If it's not going to happen just because we assume
but it might.
The Dolphins are. But let's say he gets way more usage than expected while keeping his efficiency that he had last year, he is going to be the number one pick. It's just statistically like impossible to ignore that if he gets like 20 touches a game with the efficiency he has, you're looking at one of the best fantasy seasons ever, especially with the touchdown conversion rate the Dolphins had specifically in the red zone.
But if he's banged up and Mostert still does what he did last year and Jalen Wright gets mixed in there, or you look at like worst case scenario, like what if something happens to Tua? That offense, I mean, I don't think Tua is a great quarterback in any way, but he makes that team buzz. So, if something were to happen there,
this is just a wondering aloud. A-Chain has essentially a very similar season to what he did last year. Has some huge games, misses time, and has some games where it's a Mostert show, or let's say in this year it's Jalen Wright gets some carries.
Yeah.
Where does he go in 2025 drafts?
Probably the same spot.
You think
people are gonna buy the upside and especially like if A-Chain gets to like, in the fantasy playoffs when it really matters, if he gets that 30, 40, point week that bulks people up to the top that have him maybe low owned if he gets hurt early in the season. I mean, that's something that could, people love the end of the year and what happened at the end of the year and all that stuff. He literally, Rubio says in the chat, he has the most max upside really in any player being drafted this year outside of like the obviously first round. I mean, the range of outcomes with Devon A-Chain is all over the place.
Yeah.
And he's every time you look at him, he's a hard pass because he could put up them game-winning $1 million numbers. And it's hard to pass that up in these drafts when you're spending this kind of money because
if an A-Chain team can get into week 17, right? And let's say they're the only one in the top 10 of that $1 million sprint. And could you imagine A-Chain go? I don't know. Their schedule, I believe, is tough the last couple. Let's say,
I think Miami plays. Let's see. I forget off the top.
You pull it up, but could you imagine A-Chain has a 175-yard 2-touchdown game just with a couple like 4 or 5 receptions? I mean, that is literally $1 million winning right there by a single player. He's such a
not many people have that kind of upside.
Fascinating player. Terp, I made a face here for Team 4, and not in a bad way, in a good way. Man, again, it goes back to surprise that Brandon Ayuk is actually dropped past ADP in this draft. He signed the contract. I understand.
Great pick. Why is he not moving up?
What, like he should be going over to he is in this draft a round after Deebo Samuel. He's a better wide receiver than Deebo Samuel. I think the Niners paid him to be the number one. As I said, I can't guarantee anything, but reporters are saying, Deebo Samuel might not be a 49er just with their cap space situation. Deebo Samuel also the way he's usage, way more susceptible to injury. Not as good of a route runner. I don't
understand it.
I'm not going to ask you anything because you agree with me. I'm intrigued to see if the chat has any thoughts, but I thought as soon as he signed that contract, not a crazy bump, but at least you would see him and Deebo kind of flip back. A round difference between the two is pretty nuts to me.
He's also not he's not even going up at all. Like it's like if anything, he's like stuck in a spot where it's just he should be a second round pick. I mean, he's better than Deebo. I mean, you do worry about just like the same thing you worry about Chase and the same thing you worry about Lamb. Are they in football shape? Are they ready to get out there? The nagging injury type. That's the only thing that worries me about the three. I mean, if I'm taking CeeDee Lamb number 2, that's the only thing that I have to worry about. To me, he's as close to a lock as a top 3 receiver this year as possible. Obviously, there's people that can go buy him, but an annoying injury that ruins his season is the only thing that really can stop him. Ayuk, you saw the efficiency last year, and guess what? The 49ers are defensively not going to be as good as they were last year. They're in a division that's going to be a lot better. Kyler Murray and Harrison, Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Puka. And the Seahawks, no slouch either offensively. So what makes me think that, Ayuk can't be even better? I mean, I'm Ayuk over Deebo, have always been Ayuk over Deebo. And at the end of the day, I feel like people are getting great values in Ayuk right now. I put a tweet, way before that people are going to regret not drafting enough Brandon Ayuk. And if I'm sitting there at that, 4th round, at the end of the 4th round, and Brandon Ayuk's potentially coming my way, I'm very, very excited about that.
I just wanted we were obviously had a discussion about Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua in the chat. Let let me get it. I just want to name him. Punky Poo said he was looking at a Fantasy Pros draft from March. Cooper Kupp 503, which was just, it was nuts then, nuts now.
You said the differences with draft position so far. It is insane that where guys are going. Like Devonta Smith is a perfect example. Yeah. Devonta Smith, just say in the last 3 days, he went at the 1-2 turn or 2-3, whatever the turn is. I was getting messed up. The 1-2 turn, 2-3 turn, same thing. Turn.
Yeah.
And I've seen him go in the middle of the 4th round.
Yeah. I think we've even seen him in the past with like the 4-5 turn. Let's see.
It is insane. Like, I mean, Mike Evans, we talk about stale players. Like Mike Evans is completely stale in drafts right now. And
Mike Evans, want to hear his main event range over the last 3 days? Earliest pick 302, latest pick 412. Devonta Smith, earliest 306, latest 408. It's like all these guys are like around. I mean,
it's absolutely insane.
We always talk, obviously, the Punky Poo bringing up Cooper Kupp's March ADP. When you and me talk about this ADP kind of changes and how drastic week to week it's been, we're focusing on like the last 2 weeks, the last month. It's never beyond that. We don't even have the brain width to go back to March and April and look at some of those boards, because it's going to be fascinating to see. There's going to be one, obviously, main event and start them, but there's going to be a couple of Fantasy Pros championship teams that have some really good shots to win, and you'll look back at their drafts in March and April and be, man, how did they get some of those guys at that value? And they were able to assemble a super team just because they hit on the ADP way back before even the NFL draft occurred.
I agree.
Terp, another I don't want to keep on beating the same drum every stream, but I do think it's important to point out, because people are tuning in to kind of really see how the ADP is developing. Yet another draft where quarterbacks, you have no idea what you're going to expect. And this one, we got a mid-4th round Jalen Hurts QB1, and then a nearly round wait until Josh Allen goes. And who knows after that? So it's just, like, I mean, we've been seeing a lot of Mahomes, Allen close, and then Hurts, and then there's a break to Lamar. But this drafter and the kill squad here out the 7th spot goes Jalen Hurts. I probably asked you this. Jalen Hurts is your QB1 for this year, or is it someone else?
Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, then Josh Allen.
And with Hurts, because I don't think we talked about it in a bit, is it just kind of the rushing upside he presents plus the improved passing you should expect to see in that Kellen Moore offense?
Correct. I mean, he's going to have a lot more control this year with Jason Kelce not there. He's going to be able to make a lot more decisions that he didn't be able to make in the past. It was pretty much Kelce's blitz protection, stuff like that was all Kelce. So you're going to see, in my opinion, a lot bigger of a leader from Jalen Hurts this year. And then we know AJ Brown, they got Barkley, they got, Devonta Smith, Goddard, Dotson, they just added. The offensive line, who was a little bit of a worry for me, holds up. The team's going to be buzzing. Offensively, the defense, could have some questions, but Hurts, the rushing upside ain't going nowhere. He's going to be running the ball still. I mean, that's why another reason why I don't love Barkley, because Jalen Hurts isn't going to take the ball out of his hand. He knows what he's doing. So that's why he's my QB1. I think it's pretty clear cut. The weapons he has, there's no better weapons in the NFL.
Terp, I'm trying to touch on, we do so many of these streams. Sometimes I feel as though I try not to talk about the same guys. I think we've mentioned him maybe once or twice, but sees a little bit of a boost by about half round. He's usually been going at the 509 in the main event. He was at the 503 today. Terry McLaurin. I've said it before. I really, personally, I'm just going to be completely frank. It's not the answer people want. I don't really know what to make of Terry McLaurin. What I do know what to make is people are so high on Jaden Daniels. I'm surprised that McLaurin hasn't received more of a bump. But I'll ask you, is that bump and the buzz that Jaden Daniels receiving won't maybe correlate to Terry McLaurin, because a lot of Jaden Daniels' buzz and his rise is tied into rushing upside, and maybe we're not still sold there on what he can do for the passing game? Or we should be a believer in Jaden Daniels as a passer, plus the fact that Terry McLaurin is going to be the clear alpha there and the number one target.
He's one of my favorite clicks this year. Big fan of the player. I mean, always liked him, but he just, quarterback play, was never really up to par. I love Jaden Daniels. I think that's been pretty obvious this year in the shows we've done. He is a guy that's going to be one of my highest owned players in this week. Obviously, when I get to do some of my mains in Vegas and Fantasy Pros and just drafts in general, The click is an easy click right now. I mean, no other guy on the outside to really worry about. What's the difference between him and Chris Olave? I mean, Chris Olave is a better route runner, younger, but if you believe in Jaden Daniels, you have to believe in him. So I think he's being underdrafted right now, and he will, definitely be one of the best clicks in this 5th, 6th round. I've seen him. I've got him a lot in the 6th round. Fantasy Pros I just did the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 6th round Terry McLaurin, give it to me 100 times out of 100.
And obviously, Team 3, you and me do know who Team 3 is. They are sharp drafters. We're going to be hard on them if we don't like anything, but we'll just be honest. Strong start to their draft, and Terry McLaurin as your 4th receiver, residing that 2nd flex, is great. And just real quick, again, just reaffirming quarterbacks. We saw Lamar Jackson go in the 7th round of a draft. Now he's going as QB4, but in the 5th round. Just nuts how all over the place are. But Turp, I want to ask you.
Hold on, before you ask me.
Yeah,
I'm peeking out of my right eye again.
No, you got the chat. You are
Wayne Carson over here saying I'm high. The Eagles are going to be mid. Okay, so if the Eagles are going to be mid, who's beating them in that division? And if you think the Eagles are mid, please give me some context on why you think they're mid. Are you a Dallas Cowboy fan? If you are, just stop talking, please. And if you're not, just maybe put some context attached to it. Because, hey, there's plenty of outcomes where the Eagles are just as very average as they were at the end of the season. But give me some sort of context. Just don't, the baseline Eagles are mid is not really going to, other than tweak me a little bit and make me pay attention. Put a little context attached to it.
We will wait for Wayne Carson to provide his context.
I'm going to guess it's not going to happen. Just like the guy in the other chat who said, "Oh, my takes are terrible." And then when I say, if you really are that, if you agree with me because some of my takes are terrible, there we go. Finally, okay, 49ers have very good weapons. That's a fair answer. I like the 49ers weapons. They're probably the clear-cut NFL, best team right now. I agree. Good answer. We can move on.
So yeah, so Wayne's issue was with your being a homer and saying that the Eagles have the best weapons in the league. That was.
I mean, I at the end of the day, I stand by best receivers in the league. We got AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. If you're going to tell me that Debo and Brandon Ayuk are better than them, you're drunk. If you want to argue, the other spots, fine. You're probably right. Saquon Barkley, McCaffrey, not close. George Kittle, Dallas Goedert, it's Kittle. Hurts, Purdy, we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
But
offensive line with no Trent Williams. Offensive line
without Trent Williams is not even close. With Trent Williams, I still think it's the Eagles, but it's a conversation we can
defensively, have. I said it last year too before the Eagles just imploded and their just lack of mental fortitude just destroyed them.
It was
the Eagles
disaster.
And the 49ers are and maybe the Packers slip in. They're the 3 best teams in that division. Now, Wayne does bring up the Eagles falling apart. The only thing I'll push back, I'm no Eagles fan, Wayne. I actually despise them and root for their downfall. You can never really use last year in this case because the Eagles did kind of make wholesale changes.
Matt Patricia was running the show.
Yeah,
I believe in Kellen Moore. I believe in those receivers. And Barkley, we can have a conversation about. I believe in Hurts. I really think he's going to take the next step this year and figure it all out.
Terp, you can go on about the Eagles for hours.
We can talk about Team 9 because that seems like a popular thing right now.
Team 9 is having a great draft. I was going to bring them up
having a ridiculously good draft.
Let's talk about it. Garrett Wilson in the first, come around with Travis Kelce. They go Debo, which personally I would pretty much. Well, I'm trying to think. There was a fair number of receivers I would have taken over Debo, but fine. Debo's good, sure. Devonta Smith, who you've talked up before, they get the Patrick Mahomes, Kelce stack, and Xavier Worthy around it. They are killing this draft so far. Arguably, maybe, in my opinion, the best draft out of the 12 drafters so far in this FFPC main event for $1 million grand prize.
I would definitely put him up there in the top 2 or 3 right now. It's an exceptional draft. Getting Mahomes where you got him with Kelce, I'm sure that was a little bit of a sweat. I mean, you usually don't see Mahomes fall that far in these drafts, especially the main events. Worthy, another guy who, all the press has been good lately. It's going to be interesting to see, that Thursday game, how Worthy is, because I said this before. I said it on the last show. He's my biggest guy that I'm worried about this year because he could break slates and he could literally be the alpha. And if he is, that's a worry for me because he's a guy that I don't have a ton of.
I just got to say, Wayne, I love you, man. Wayne stuff 42-19. I got to be honest, and Wayne, you can talk to me as again, not a fan of either team. This Niners Eagles rivalry that's developed is one of the funnier things to watch.
It is funny. I mean,
they have no rivalry before this.
None at all. I mean, literally, like it all started at the playoffs when they played in the NFC Championship game, and all the quarterbacks got hurt. Okay, we won the game. Was it an ugly game? All that cool stuff. Yeah. Could the 49ers have won that game? They sure could have because Eagles didn't play well. But at the end of the day, then they come here, they blow the doors off us. And that started the Eagles' just disaster of a close. And at the end of the day, the 49ers were a better team last year. I don't know if the 49ers are the same team. Simple as that.
Well,
I'm not sitting here saying they're better. The Eagles are better than them because I'm not going to say that. Purdy, you have to put some respect on his name. McCaffrey, the best in the business. Nobody loves Brandon Ayuk more than me. Debo, George Kittle is one of the most funnest tight ends, whether you're a fan or not a fan, to ever watch. But I feel like the Super Bowl losing the way they lost, they're going to have a hangover. And if that happens and Trent Williams, number one, is not in camp, I don't know if the 49ers are going to be as good as people think they are. And like I said, the division got better. 49ers are still the favorite. They're still the clear-cut favorite. But they have a lot of questions that will potentially get exposed. But, hey, as of now, they're the top dog, and they deserve to be the top dog. But the NFC definitely got better. Forget the Eagles. The NFC got better. They should have lost to the Green Bay Packers last year. And if the Green Bay Packers didn't pretty much just screw up the game, same thing with the Lions.
I as much as I love this, I can't have, as this host, this stream devolve into a Niners-Eagles rivalry.
Man, we've had some really solid streams where it was just pretty much.
I will say no. I respect Wayne.
I like when the wheels fall off a little bit.
Wayne is backing it up. He's actually
bringing some good banter. I like that.
He's giving us great banter. He's giving us great banter. I will say, I'll ask Wayne this, and here's my concern because I have a friend who's a diehard Niners fan. Who is the last quarterback to lose their first Super Bowl appearance and then make it back? Hasn't happened in quite some time. So that's, I think, always the worry for. Yeah, I don't know. Cullen Hoffman saying, "Why are we talking about a game 2 years ago?" I don't really know. We get sidetracked. Let's get back on.
Sometimes the wheels fall. That's the best part about these shows.
It's the last main event draft of the year. Me and Terp are. Terp is.
We're a little jet lagged. I've been really nice this year.
He got locked in.
Last year I was ripping teams left and right. I kind of just relaxed on that a little bit this year. Every once in a while, and sometimes the wheels fall off.
Getting back to the stream, how about I just want to make sure I'm not. I mean, the JSN rise is it getting to a point where it's too much? That's essentially the best way to phrase it. Like the JSN, there's obviously hit one of the highest risers over the last month, but now you're hitting a point where you're seeing mid-6th round share Jackson Smith and Jigba. We don't know what that offense is going to really look like. We like to believe that what Ryan Grubb did at Washington can translate, but we don't know. DK is the guy still there. Tyler Lockett, while almost certainly in decline, certainly going to have moments where he kind of takes away. And while JSN flashed, it wasn't this amazing rookie season that you can instill confidence in as much as you can blame that maybe on Shane Waldron and usage. But as you're a guy who kind of likes JSN, but we were seeing JSN 9th round. Now you're getting him in mid-6. Has the price gotten too high for you?
I don't think so. I mean,
really,
he's a guy that, personally, I don't have a lot of. He's a little bit of a worry because you've heard a ton of positive things. Tyler Lockett's been banged up. It's a new coaching staff, and anytime you get a new coaching staff, I mean, like they say, there's no job that's 100% secure. I mean, we say the same stuff with, the new offensive coordinator with the Bears. It should be DJ Moore. He did get paid, but there's outs that it could be Keenan Allen. There's definitely outs it could be Roman Dunze. So you worry about that a lot if you're a DK Metcalf, owner. And Tyler Lockett's not a guy that I think anybody's really overly excited to draft. But I mean, he's performed pretty much every year. So JSN could easily be the alpha on that team. I mean, everybody loved him coming out, got hurt, started the season slow, never really recovered from that. But it seems like this year everything's starting to just click. And I don't think, I mean, what are we talking about? A round early? I know, he was going, eighth, ninth earlier. But it's hard to, like, when you're drafting main events and you're drafting fantasy pros now, it's hard to really worry about earlier. Because at the end of the day, it's drafting the best team. And if you're talking about, like, a couple of years ago, like Mike Davis, who is a popular name that got moved all the way up draft boards, and you had him in the third, fourth round, some drafts, when people were getting him in the ninth, you got to do an evaluation to see if Mike Davis was ever any good in this league and realize that was silly. But a player like JSN moving up 3 rounds is not, silly for me.
No, I understand that. It just feels to me, some of these names he's going over, it just feels like a bit much sometimes. Turk, there was a kind of comment in the chat that Team 7 was getting some love. So I wanted to kind of look at them. Obviously, they had Christian Watson, so you're going to be a fan no matter what with your love affair with him. But Team 7 starts off Justin Jefferson and Marvin Harrison. They get a mid-third round Mark Andrews share. They go Jalen Hurts, Rashad White. They get Joe Mixon at a round of value at the 606, which is nice. I'm not a Joe Mixon guy by any means, but 6th-round Joe Mixon, you'll take that. And then Christian Watson. What do you make of Team 7 so far?
Nice start. The running backs, I just drafted Joe Mixon on the last stream we have. Guy I loved early on. The injury kind of worried me a little bit, but I'm starting to come back to get him a little bit more. It's not a sexy pick, but I feel like he's a guy that's going to get plenty of work. They made the effort to pay him and trade for him. So it's definitely a guy that, I'm looking at, as a, 6th round. That's a great value. Anytime you draft Jalen Hurts, it's a good thing. We know my love affair with Marvin Harrison. And Jefferson has, all the potential to get 5,000 targets. The quarterback position worries me a little bit more than most, but I really like what Team 7 did.
Yeah, as a Justin Jefferson owner, I drafted him at the 107, not in an FFPC, just in my college friends draft today. And I will say it is concerning, the QB situation, and I can already almost visualize the Justin Jefferson throwing a temper tantrum on the sideline in week 3 after just another bagel performance and just regretting the pick, but that's neither here nor there. An interesting thing in this draft, Rome Odunze goes before Keenan Allen. I love Rome Odunze for Dynasty. I love Rome Odunze as a player. I know he's going to have some big weeks. Some like these, just essentially what was proven to be just fake rumors about Keenan Allen's weight gain. Maybe, his ADP has remained steady, but this has been one of the best, most consistent receivers in the NFL over the last decade almost. Obviously, DJ Moore's there. Keenan Allen, we always talk about how they're going to affect each other. Keenan Allen's not going to be facing number ones. And if he's lined up in the slot with Odunze and DJ Moore outside, it just sometimes feels as though Keenan Allen, maybe even if it's not the week-to-week great consistency we'll see, this is still one of the top receivers, I think, in the league. And he's going behind Odunze, behind an unknown Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Deontay Johnson, who has a ceiling on him. Essentially, my long rambling, Keenan Allen, 709, wide receiver 41. I haven't heard your thoughts all year on Keenan Allen. Where are you at on him?
Don't have much of him. Love the player. Just the situation's just, murky for me. We just don't know. Shane Waldron's a wild card for me. He's a guy that I've talked about a bunch. I just don't know what he's going to be as an offensive coordinator. We saw last year with 3 very talented receivers not being able to figure it out. Obviously Caleb Williams an upgrade over, Geno Smith, and the other guys who were starting last year. But it seems like Odunze is getting all the press, all the positivity, all that stuff that you look for. And if that's the case, he's a guy that should be getting drafted higher than Keenan Allen.
My thing is Keenan Allen, just the makeup of the player that he is, it just sets up very nicely.
But aren't you worried a little bit about Fat Keenan?
No, not really. I think he's looked fine. I know there's been some underlying stats in the preseason, but this is a guy who's been there, and I didn't see the signs of decline last year. Obviously, injuries are a concern with him. Here's my thing. Tell me, you can tell me if I'm wrong. does Keenan Allen's like his profile as a player not make up to be a rookie quarterback's best friend and like a
It
top
seems
option?
like, short passes, nothing crazy, guy who can run routes, all that cool stuff. And he's a great player. I mean, he was one of my favorite clicks last year and literally was a monster all season. But the only thing that obviously worried about was the end of the season. He wasn't there. So, it's really difficult to really get behind him this year, in my opinion, but I could be wrong.
Team 9, obviously. First off, between Team 3 and Team 9, like, at some point it goes too far for me, a 0 RB build. And Team 9 might have passed that. And Team 3 might
Team
be on their
9 has
way.
passed that, in my opinion. I
It's
think they're getting too cute.
gone too far.
I think it should have stopped after Xavier Worthy. You could have had a backfield of Tony Pollard and
Chase Brown. Oh, not
you
Chase
wouldn't have
Brown.
got Chase Brown, but still,
No, yeah,
any
Pollard
of those other guys would have made more sense. But definitely, I would have stopped after Keenan Allen because I understand.
Do you think Brian Thomas was a sunk cost? Like they're like, well, shit, we
maybe they were just hoping for Chase Brown,
didn't
but
fall back to us. Let's just take Thomas because we think he could be a star.
7th, 8th, 9th round is running back haven this year because the receivers kind of stale up a little bit. There are a lot more questions surrounding them, so it's definitely more of a worry. When you look at guys like Mostert, Jonathan Brooks, I mean, we don't know when he's going to play. Jalen Warren, we don't know there. There's a lot of questions to, all these guys in their range, but that's why they're being drafted in this range. But is there really that big of a difference between Jalen Warren healthy and, I don't know, James Conner or Aaron Jones? I don't think so. Team 9, I feel like this would be a really, really, really good best ball, draft if he would have stopped at Keenan Allen. But now he has 6 receivers.
Feels like we say that a lot, right? On these streams, Fantasy Pros and Main Event, where there's always one team that's like, yeah, this is a loaded best ball team, but it's not best ball.
I have no problem drafting 6. Like, if you're going through round, people love 0 RB builds this year. And I'm not going to sit here and say I don't love it because I love them this year. And I love hero RB builds. Like, to me, Team 3 is better than Team 9 because they have Bijan. So the running back 2 position means nothing to me. So obviously they saw, let's look at Terry McLaurin. They could have drafted Jake Ferguson. I would have drafted Terry McLaurin. JSN. They could have had Dallas Goedert. I would have taken JSN. There's no tight ends after that. The tight end thing kind of draws up. So they figure, we'll draft 2 or 3 guys like Conklin, Henry, Fryermuth, guys like that. And we have our anchor running back. And these 6 receivers are realistically all potential alphas. You could all make a case for all of them, especially if Jamar Chase don't sign. T. Higgins is a ridiculous value, and I don't like T. Higgins at all. But with no Jamar Chase, a 4th round T. Higgins looks great. So, Anthony Richardson, the ultimate upside quarterback. We talk about Devin Achane, same case with Anthony Richardson.
My issue with them is the running backs are going to be rough. And it's just all of the receivers just have enough concerns with me where it's just, I don't know. It's just not the best for me. It's not a build for me. If I'm doing it, I understand the vision. I like the Brian Robinson pick. That's a nice value there at RB32, but you have some low ceiling guys, but we'll see what happens. Like you mentioned, as you always say, like any build can win. That's why when we always talk about our preference, we're sharing, like you're more of a hammer receiver early. So that's when you're discussing, that's your friend.
I would love every draft to get one of those top 3 running backs and then just stop.
Yeah. But there's also builds like, for example, now I'm going to make one tweak to it. I think Team 4 has done a really good hero RB build where they went Brees, ETN, Pacheco. Now the difference is I wouldn't have taken Aaron Jones. I would have taken one of those from JSN through kind of the 7th round, one of those receivers to try and help improve that room.
See, I don't agree there. And I'll tell you why I don't agree. Because
you don't like the build, or you would have taken
I don't like the build at all. I don't like the 3 running back start because I think it puts you way behind the 8 ball. And I love Brandon Ayuk, but there's still questions with him as being your alpha. And let's just call it what it is. You need receivers to get you to the promised land. Yeah, I know the Brees Halls and the and the Alvin Kamara's are the guys that got teams, to $1 million. And I get all that. But at the end of the day, without Jaden Reed, without Diggs a couple of years ago, I mean, you look at all these alpha receivers, Amari Cooper last year, players like that. You're drafting 5 running backs in your first 9 picks. To me, it's just making the teams around you better because, like you said, Aaron Jones, just not a pick that I'm excited about. As your 4th running back, let's just say it's perfect, and Aaron Jones is, great for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. Why do you need Zach Moss?
Yeah,
your running back, your receivers are Brandon Ayuk, who I love, but then Jaden Reed, who comes with a lot of questions, and Hopkins, who we don't even know is going to be ready for the season. And if he is, as much as I love that offense and love Will Levis and love Calvin Ridley, I love Hopkins too, but it's just this team could be in a hole before the season starts. Yeah. And then
I should rephrase by saying they like a 3 RB start like they had. There was a path for me to really like this team. And I think they could have built a really good team. I don't know if they fully succeeded on that. The Aaron Jones, Zach Moss, I think you just kind of have to, they took Ferguson, which is even fine with me, but then I think you just got to start firing off receivers because your running back room is locked. You don't, if Zach Moss comes into play with you, that means something's gone wrong with Etienne or Pacheco or Brees, God forbid.
9th round Kyler. I mean, that's just what dreams are made of.
Yeah. I mean, QB7 in the 9th round. There was some love for Team 10 in the chat. AJ Brown, Gibbs, DJ Moore, Evan Ingram, Ridley, Godwin, Swift, and Chase Brown. Yep.
I like that team. No issues whatsoever. A lot of players I like drafting, especially that Ingram, Ridley, Godwin, obviously Chase Brown. No issues whatsoever. I mean, I probably would have took Metcalf or Rice over Moore, but no real thing I could ever say negative about that team. I mean, that's a team that has a lot of potential to win this league.
I feel like it's always a sign of a pretty good draft when the comment section is hyping up seemingly every other comment is someone saying that a different team is having the best draft. We just got one.
I see a lot of Team 1. I mean, Team 1, obviously, we don't need to talk about McCaffrey's start, but Derrick Henry is all over the draft boards right now. I mean, he's a player that is very polarizing because he could score 20 touchdowns, but he's also getting up there in age and things could break down.
And a rough Ravens offensive line
compared to offensive line. Drake London's a ridiculous value there. Michael Pittman's a guy I'm neutral with. I see it, but I also worry about Anthony Richardson and being able to get him the targets that he needs to pay off where he's being drafted. I love George Pickens. He's one of my favorite players in the league.
He's a spike week player. He's
a spike week player, and Arthur Smith is an absolute. We saw what Arthur Smith did last year with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. What makes anybody think that George? And I love George Pickens. If you put a really good offensive coordinator there, George Pickens is a 2nd round draft pick in my opinion. No matter who the quarterback is, even though Dusty, Russ, and Fields doesn't matter, they're going to figure out a way to get him the ball. Good offensive coordinator. Arthur Smith is not a good offensive coordinator. So to me, as much as it pains me, Pickens is the fade. Got it in the 6th round. I love the Eagles. They're my team. You can see it in the background. I talk a lot about the Eagles. But Dallas Goedert is this. I don't know if he's ever going to reach the potential that most people think he has. And if I'm not getting one of those Kittle, Ferguson, Njoku, Ingram, Pitts that I talk about a lot, I'm probably just punting the position and just seeing whatever happened. Hold on. Back to the right side, peeking out of my eye. Thoughts on Dalvin Cook signing with the Cowboys? Put that up on the screen if you could, please. One word. Dusty. Dust bucket. No. Dalvin Cook, no. I don't care who it is.
That was
you
more
can
than
sub the Cowboys out and put them on any team. Literally, there's got to be somebody on the streets better than Dalvin Cook. There just has to be. It's just an arrogant move by an arrogant owner that literally makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, what did Dalvin Cook show you last year that makes you think that even Dallas fans, my man Jimmy Williams, always on this chat, always bringing the heat. He's not excited about Dalvin Cook. He can try to tell me he is, but I know he's not.
Yeah,
Dalvin Cook is just, it's not even a depth signing. It makes no sense. It's name love more than anything.
Yeah, that signing, I don't think anyone is actually treating it as a fantasy impact signing in any way. On Zeke, on Rico Dowdle. It was more of just Like, it's essentially just like it's. I don't think it's any different than when a random running back that you never heard of signs with the Dallas Cowboys, and you don't think.
To me, I'm more interested in a player. And this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to stand by the statement. I'm more interested in a player like Hassan Haskins with his Michigan, ties going to Jim Harbaugh than Dalvin Cook signing with Dallas. Yeah. I can see a path that Hassan Haskins, potentially gets, some late season buzz. Early, probably not. We all liked Hassan Haskins, in the past, for, upside type of thing. But I don't see that at all with Dalvin Cook. Hey, you could always be wrong, but I don't see there being any way that's possible.
Like, this is a no shit statement, but in terms of like older running backs, it's like Samaje Perine is an example of a late signing by a team that might actually have fantasy impact and impact the presumed RB1. Like, that's a real example of kind of a dustier old running back with not only some possible standalone value, but also a wider range impact on multiple guys. Terp, I got to ask here, Nick Chubb goes before Jerome Ford in this main event draft. Obviously, I'm sure people in the back of their minds when they're drafting, you always say you got to win your league first, but people do think for that championship sprint for $1 million. And how can I build this team to also have the optimal kind of squad as we chase that $1 million in a 3-week sprint, which I'm sure when you're drafting Nick Chubb, people are thinking of. But Nick Chubb is missing 4 weeks. He's recovering from a major injury. We know he's superhuman, but who knows how much it's going to take him to get back up to speed. And even when he does, maybe Jerome Ford can carve out a role for himself that takes away from Chubb. If you're drafting, again, both of them are around 9th, 10th round picks, so it's nothing too crazy. But it's also tough because your builds, right, or specifically you're always looking for immediate running back help. So I'm sure Chubb is way less of an option. Put yourself in more of a neutral drafter's shoe. Are you drafting Chubb for maybe that higher upside come the playoff sprint, or are you looking for that immediate 4-week possible big impact that Jerome Ford could bring?
At the end of the day, it all comes down to team structure. I mean, you said it perfectly. I don't love any of them, but if I had a pick, it would be Jerome Ford. I feel like he's going to give you the best option, even when potentially Chubb does come back. I think that Ford will give you, some sort of value, and potentially if Chubb isn't 100%, or if Ford does, do very well at the beginning of the season, he could be a guy that, definitely, gives you value and helps you out at the end of the season. Chubb, I love the player. If anybody can come back from the injury, it's him. But the issues with him is, we just don't know. And that's a wild, wild guess. And to spend a 9th round capital, I know, a mistake drafters make is they're playing for just regular season. But, could Chubb get there and be that guy? Yes, but I'll probably bet that he's not. And if I get beat by him, I get beat by him. I'll have some Chubb. I have him in, a couple, best ball drafts, fantasy pros. If he fell to like the 10th, 11th round, which he won't, but if he did, I would definitely get more exposure. But I don't know. He's just not a guy that I'm really excited about. Brian Robinson, Blake Corum, Spears, Singletary, Ford, Rico, Jalen Wright. They're all guys I would take over.
Obviously, we're covering the FFPC main event tonight, but we kind of want to pause right here in the middle of this 10th round to real quick just kind of discuss our Fantasy Pros Championship Draftathon that is going on through tomorrow night. $50 from every Fantasy Pros Championship draft is being donated to charity, but we just want to play a real quick video to all those watching so maybe you can understand more about not only the inspiration behind this charity, but also the important work that they're doing.
I met Corporal Casey Owen in 2005. We selected him as a wounded warrior to come out as our guest to have a good time with passionate fantasy football players. He arrived in a wheelchair 11 months after he was critically injured in Iraq. I stayed in touch with him. He would reach out to me, update me on what was going on in his life, some of the trials and tribulations of his injuries. He lost his legs. He had a brain injury. But he kept forging on in his life. He joined the Paralympics. He really, really tried to continue on with his life, to serve his country, to be a good person. He had a rescue dog, which was a service dog for him. I lost touch with him around 2013. And then I Googled to see what he was up to, maybe with the Paralympics, and I realized that he had killed himself. And so that really impacted me for a person that I only met in person for just a couple days of my life. I knew I needed to carry on his memory, his dedication to just being a helpful person, and rescue dogs is what I wanted to do. I started a 501c3 and I named it Casey the Rescue after him. There's a couple coordinators and rescue people on the ground in Lexington that go to the shelters and pick up the dogs daily as they're being euthanized, hang on to them to the next time that I can get down there in my shuttle. I think that my record number on my shuttle was 92, which included litters of puppies, big dogs, little dogs, and a couple of cats. The best way that anybody in this fantasy football community can help is to play this weekend in the Fantasy Pros Championship. I'm so honored to be selected as the charity this year. The impact is humongous. It will be saving thousands of dogs.
So if you guys are looking to draft this weekend, you have tonight and obviously all day tomorrow. If you're looking to draft in the Fantasy Pros Championship, I just wanted to let everyone know that $50 from each draft will be donated to Casey to the Rescue. As of this morning, for the first 2 days, we've already raised over about $4,500 for Casey to the Rescue. And we're hoping to get that number up and up. So keep on drafting in both the main event, keep on drafting the Fantasy Pros Championship. And when you're drafting the Fantasy Pros Championship, just know that you're saving thousands of dogs. Terp is back. Terp, obviously, we've talked about Casey to the Rescue and the work Chris does. Everyone in the chat here, I appreciate all the kind words. Chris Lambert has a massive impact on the fantasy community and probably helped more of you guys than you guys even know. So if you guys could help her out by just playing in the Fantasy Pros Championship, $50 each draft donated to Casey to the Rescue. Now, Terp, back to the draft. Obviously played that quick video there kind of explaining it, but since then some really interesting picks off the board. Just kind of wanted to touch base with you on a running backfield that we've discussed a lot on the show, which is the Chargers. Gus Edwards goes at the 10:08, J.K. Dobbins at the 11:01. Kamani Vidal has yet to be drafted, but he's rising. The answer seemingly has kind of constantly shifted throughout the year of who we're liking. Obviously, early on, it felt very heavy. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins got a ton of positive buzz. He kind of rised. Vidal, as I've said in the last 2 weeks, has risen from the dead and revived his ADP. Where are you at on the Chargers backfield? One, who are you taking? Who do you think is going to lead this backfield in fantasy points come the end of the year? And then, and really, it's just kind of like, are any of them even worth it? Do any of them actually provide meaningful fantasy value in 2024?
None of them really excite me, especially the top two. I don't have much Dobbins. I don't have much Edwards. Dobbins would be the one if you're going to have, gun to my head type of situation. I'm going to draft some Vidal, and I'm also, going to pay attention to Haskins. I know I mentioned it, but, anytime a quarterback, anytime a running back or any position player of notice goes back to a coach that, was, from their alma mater, it makes a little bit of sense to me in a room that just is totally just ugly, in my opinion, on a team that's just not very good. So we'll see. I mean, it's not one I'm going to be targeting a ton. I just don't see it. If Gus Edwards beats me, he beats me. If Dobbins beats me, he beats me. Where they're getting drafted is not bad at all. I mean, you definitely want to take some flyers. It just comes down to where do you think? And to me, it's just a no.
Terp, Team 3. I've obviously been following them a lot with their, obviously they started with Bijan Robinson, then hammered receiver, but through 11 rounds, it's the two Robinsons, it's Bijan and Brian, and then nothing else. Is it still for you? Are you fine with this build, or is it still too much concern about the running backs that they're going to be able to muster in the case that Brian Robinson maybe doesn't, kind of, he does have a split workload with Austin Eckler. Where are you at on team 3? People were liking in the chat there Hawkinson, Pat Freiermuth double tap. That feels like where maybe TJ Hawkinson should be going. You and me have talked about how he goes too high often, and we know your love of Muth, but where are you at on them and their running back room, team 3?
I don't mind what they're doing at all. I mean, with Hawkinson, you're playing for the end of the season. You're not playing for now, and Freiermuth to get you there. He's been falling in drafts. I mean, Arthur Smith's starting to wear off on drafters, and they clearly don't think that he's going to be a big piece of that offense. I don't agree. I think Freiermuth will be, and he's enough of a player with this team to where the tight end position might drop off a little bit to where he's going to be the guy for the first however many weeks, and then Hawkinson can lead him to the promised land. So I like what they did with the double tap of tight ends. I mean, is running back going to be a question? Of course, but this is a team that's probably for the next 6 rounds going to take a running back. So we'll see.
I gotta ask you, out of that was a loud noise. Out of kind of these later quarterbacks being drafted, which one do you think is the best value? Because talking from let's say from Richardson on, we talk about the quarterbacks and how they're dropping, but some of them we repeat over and over. It just seems like extreme value. Richardson 810, Kyler 906, Jaden Daniels 908, which maybe not include him because that's right around ADP. Jordan Love at the 911, Joe Burrow at the 1003, which the chat was astounded by. 10th round Dak Prescott, the last pick of the 10th round, and then Brock Purdy QB 12. Which one is the best value out of those names?
I mean, it to me, it's Kyler. But if you take Kyler off that list, I mean, Jaden Daniels is close second, and then to me, it's Jordan Love. I mean, there are guys I would love to start my room with, if I had the opportunity. It just comes down to the question is, will the Josh Allen's, Mahomes, Hurts of the world be able to just completely destroy them? I don't think they will. I love all 3 of their spots. Dak's not a bad selection either. Joe Burrow, not for me, but I really like what they're doing. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world to wait on quarterback this year. If you don't add Hurts or you don't add Mahomes, I like Josh Allen, but he's not a priority to me where he's being drafted, even in the 5th round, just for the questions around the receiver position. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all about waiting on quarterbacks. If I'm waiting on anything this year, it's quarterbacks.
Jerry Jeudy for me is a name I will literally 0%. Like, it will never be a click. I don't see the upside. I'm intrigued to hear if you have anything positive to say about Jerry Jeudy or a potential situation where he could reward fantasy value. And I also direct this to the chat if there's anyone out there who is buying Jerry Jeudy in this 11th, 12th rounds who feels as though that there's maybe some untapped upside there.
I'm done with Jerry Jeudy. If he beats me, he beats me. I mean, I've been on him. I can't even remember how many years, and it's just never. He's a guy that you always figure out, like, does he get it up here? We remember the whole debacle with Steve Smith type of situation. Like, when I see stuff like that, go out and show me, or just stop. And the questions of Deshaun Watson right now. It's just a question. I'm not a believer in Jeudy.
That's the flip side.
A guy that will be on any of my teams.
The only thing I'll give Jerry Jeudy is, and obviously he has not delivered on the expectations he had coming out of Alabama, but none of those Broncos teams are really ideal situations for receivers to thrive. He had some injuries. Obviously, we talked about the mindset. The issue is he goes to a new team that believes him and paid him, but they're not necessarily with the uncertainty that Deshaun Watson brings at quarterback. Not like an offensive situation where I'm like, I think he'll really be giving a chance to shine that he wasn't in Denver. I mean, Amari Cooper's the number 1 guy, and
Njoku, all that thing. Like,
and they're going to be run
guys
heavy.
We talk about,
and Deshaun Watson's shoulders falling off. Yeah.
If they beat me, they beat me. Jared Judy's definitely one of them. If he gets me, I'm okay. I can live with it.
I love that what Team 4 did. Wait on quarterback and double tap Purdy and Golf. And as I said, weekly manage, you can just kind of play the odds with it.
It's tough. It's tough, but you get Jared Goff pretty much indoors all season. And, that is definitely something to watch. And if that works out, like, Jared Goff could be a steal in drafts this year. I mean, and Team 12, they are watching Twitter today. Marshawn Lloyd practiced. Pretty much was free in drafts for the last week. One of my highest owned players. Love the talent. Him practicing is music to my ears. Everybody's like, oh, he's going on pup. He's going on pup. He's going on pup. He didn't go on pup. And now Marshawn Lloyd is wheels up.
Yeah, to me, the thing with Lloyd that I'm still tentative on is just injury aside, it was all the rumors were, hey, this is going to be a redshirt year. They're going to ease him. However, that was also with A.J. Dillon healthy. So maybe his process is accelerated a bit, although I do still think Josh Jacobs is due for a big season. And I know the stats about Matt LaFleur and percentage of carries he gives to his top backs, but just with the parameters of the contract that Jacobs was given, it just feels as though he's a guy who's set to just eat a bunch of carries for a good team. And they could very well just cut bait with him after 1 year. So I'm not huge on Lloyd, but again, 12th round, and especially if you bought the dip following the injury, you're probably, as I know you kind of did, you're sitting in a good spot. But obviously they went before him, but give me guys like Bucky Irving, Ray Davis, in terms of rookies, right ahead of him, all in the same range, who I think have way better shots of kind of usurping the running back one on their own team. That's just my opinion.
We don't agree there, and I like that because we agree on a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's Lloyd over all those guys.
It's just, I think Jacobs, this Rubio comment's gonna make Terp laugh. Do y'all think the rookie's gonna start over Emmanuel Wilson? For a guy who probably has done nothing wrong in his life, Terp has an irrational dislike towards Emmanuel Wilson and degrades him as a player, and it's due to his Marshawn.
I don't agree with you. I don't think I've ever degraded Emmanuel Wilson.
I quote, who the hell is Emmanuel Wilson?
Well, that is true because who
Emmanuel
the hell
Wilson
is he?
is probably a bum off the street. Words like that were used to describe Emmanuel Wilson by you.
And that's all probably value. But I mean, I was a little wound up when I got Christian Watson the last stream. So I mean, literally anything happens after something like a Chase Brown, Christian Watson back to back. I mean, I was flying high, so I didn't have a care in the world. The chat was getting to me. I mean, blood was flowing. But yeah, Emmanuel Wilson. I mean, week 1, maybe. But the only shot he has to be relevant in any aspect of any games is if something happens to Marshawn Lloyd again, which is possible because he's been banged up. So I don't think Emmanuel Wilson's a name that we're even going to talk about.
Season. I think it's a Josh Jacobs big year. That's what I think.
It could be. I mean, Josh Jacobs is another guy that I was not on at all. Just added him in the main event. Have added him in some fantasy pros. Nothing crazy. Nothing like over the top. I'm not moving him up to the 3rd round or anything like that. But if he's there in the 4th round, he makes some sense, especially if you're starting, 3 receivers or 2 tight ends or something like that, mixing things up to get your RB1 in the room. I have no issues whatsoever in that.
Question in the chat. We talked an irrational amount about the New England receiver room, like in the first couple of months of our streams. Question in the chat. Jalen Polk getting drafted as wide receiver 62 in the middle of the 13th round on average, or I'm trying to find or Pop Douglas, who's been getting drafted as wide receiver 68 at the 1502. Which one are you taking?
I mean, it's Polk for me. I mean, I just think that I'll take my chances on him, developing with May when May's the guy. It just, do I love Polk? No. Do I draft a lot of Polk? Yeah, because he's cheap and he has that potential to be the guy. I think that the Patriots is going to be a disaster this year. I mean, especially early in the season. I mean, I understand why they didn't start Drake May. I don't agree with it, but their offensive lines might be one of the worst I've ever seen. Watching that preseason game, it was an atrocity. But they don't want to get the young kid killed. A David Carr situation where they pretty much just put him out there and got him tortured. But that team is definitely is going to be interesting this year. There's going to be somebody in that wide receiver room, and they're definitely a room that I'm taking some shots on. But yeah, it's Polk for me. I mean, I draft a ton of Douglas too, and I still mix in Javon Baker because it's more of a play for later in the season. But there won't be any KJ Osborne drafters or any of those dust buckets.
There's someone currently live on this stream who immensely regrets a bet he made with a close friend about betting on the Patriots over like 5 or 6 months ago. Yeah, I did that.
What is their over under?
Yeah, I bet. I said I guarantee. Well, it wasn't guaranteed. I said I'll bet you that they'll finish over 4.5 wins, which doesn't look good.
I mean, 4.5 wins is not a lot, especially with the extra game. I mean,
They need to get 5. My reasoning was, putting aside fantasy, and I don't want to get into this too much because I want to focus on the draft, but the reasoning was that defense, I think, will always play. That defense will win them a couple games, and surely the quarterback play can't be any worse than it was last year. But that offensive line is just atrocious. Unbelievably bad. Terp, I got to ask you, Samaje Perine signs with the Chiefs. I don't want to talk about Perine. I think he is going to have a role. I don't think he's going to be that fantasy valuable. I don't think you're really maybe ever starting him, barring a Pacheco injury. My question is, how much does he limit Pacheco's upside? As we had seen Pacheco reaching middle second round since a Perine signing, that guy Pacheco has been back to being a mid third round, early third round pick. Seems like it kind of has deflated a bit of the Pacheco buzz that was steaming up at an immense amount. Where are you at on how Perine affects Isaiah Pacheco?
A week ago, we definitely had a conversation about guys that we were underexposed to and guys that I was worried about. Pacheco was definitely one of them because he always fell in that range of the receivers I just like better and I like building teams around. But now, yeah, I'm probably not going to have any Pacheco as we go these last. I don't even know how many drafts I have left. I still have a ton, but I don't think I'll have much Pacheco. I mean, Perine, is he a superstar? No, he's not. But he's annoying enough in the passing game that he's going to take away a lot of Pacheco's value. And, it's going to be annoying enough because he still has the receivers on the outside, still has Kelsey. Does Pacheco still have very, very good potential and very, very, potential to exceed his ADP? Of course he does. But with the guys being drafted around him, yeah, I'm probably going to sit this one out.
I never knock a 13th round pick, but of like all the minor picks to catch me off guard, Hayden Hurst in the 13th round at tight end 20 threw me for a loop there.
Is that his second tight end?
Let me scroll out quick. If it's Henry Hurst, do they have another one? No, that is their second tight end. But Hayden Hurst has been going, if he's drafted, it's like the 18th, 19th, 20th round, tight end 32. It just threw me for one, but
that's definitely a loop. I mean, Hayden Hurst is not a guy we've been seeing get drafted this high.
Yeah, we don't need to discuss it. It's just there's always those.
I see the speculation why, but yeah, I'm probably out there.
That's some random ones. Then he took a second quarterback. See, Terp, I don't know about you. Obviously, I don't. Depending on when you're. The way quarterbacks are dropping, like I think Rubio said Aiden, he took a second quarterback too. I don't mind taking Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence. Now, the issue does become if you're very high on Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love, if both of them hit their ceiling, now you're just kind of in a spot where you're picking week to week and one might be wasting away on your bench. But like a 9th round Jordan Love and a 12th round Trevor Lawrence, just from a personal level, not something maybe I would do. I would wait, as I'm sure your answer is going to be, for like a later round Will Levis.
I would just wait on.
I don't mind this. Like I'm not going to knock it. I don't think
it's not bad because I like both players. Like it's not like when you're looking to build a quarterback room, especially after last year when all the injuries did happen.
You're paying for high end insurance.
You're paying for insurance.
High end insurance.
The only issue you come in with, with Trevor Lawrence, if I remember correctly, his team started Barkley Taylor, so you're betting your team on that. People could say whatever they want. Barkley and Taylor are your guys. And if they don't work out, this team's probably dead. All the way they're building this team, it pretty much they're betting on those two players. So getting a guy like Lawrence is protecting Love. It goes with Kirk. I love stacking. Like you said, Hayden Hurst is a little bit of a question, but I don't mind doing it. Like, for instance, Kyler Murray and Caleb Williams. I don't like that at all. It's not because I don't like either player. It's because you're spending capital on Kyler Murray. He fell to you in the 9th round. You just, push somebody else down that, you at least have the option that gives you're going to be clicking buttons too much. You're going to be looking at, Caleb Williams is playing Detroit. That could be a shootout click. And then Kyler Murray puts up 30 on you. It's just, that's where it gets the best ball, 100%. Give me all that. But when you're clicking a button, I feel like if you're investing this, from Jordan Love and Dak Prescott, and up, after that, I don't know. It's just tricky for me.
Here's the deal. As I already have mentioned, the Purdy Golf one, that double tap one, brilliant. I love that. I know people will disagree, and it's fine. And you have an Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels. If I'm in these people's spots in a $2,000 entry FFPC main event league, I'm pushing up a backup quarterback because Richardson and Daniels have shown through both college, obviously for both. Daniels hasn't played yet, but Anthony Richardson even last year, they're going to be put in positions where, okay, well, he took a third, so I can't condone that.
You were trying to say something positive, but if you're taking 3 quarterbacks in a main event, I mean,
he just didn't need it. Purdy and Goff will get you through the season fine. But I was saying Daniels and Richardson are a guy who I'm pushing up a Purdy, a Goff, a Trevor Lawrence because I don't trust Daniels and Richardson to stay healthy through the season. Could they?
You're building too many risks to me. It's just there's too much risk. Yeah. And none of those 3 guys have any rushing upside. Their ceiling is,
the Tua pick.
The Tua pick just makes no sense. I know running backs ugly, and I know receivers aren't the best right now, but you could literally take anybody except Tua there. And
I have a question, and the chat too. Do you think the amount of quarterback injuries that we saw last year with which left the waiver wire bare, do you think people are just subconsciously or consciously just adjusting that and almost trying to play keep away? Like they're so focused. I want to win this league. I'm going to do this by if quarterback injuries happen, I'm going to be the
stupid mentality. All seriousness is just it's a silly mentality to do.
Do you think people are doing that? Do you think could be a legitimate reason why, or is it just no?
It's definitely in the range of possibilities, I guess. But I mean, I don't. It's not something I'd ever recommend.
Yeah, I don't. Purdy. I love the Purdy Golf too.
14th round Young Hoo Koo. Not something I'd recommend either.
13th round Jets defense.
I mean, love the Jets defense. Would love to have the Jets defense on some fantasy teams this year, but probably won't because there's no way I'm spending 13th round, capital on a defense. It's just
that's also the first
so fluky every year, and it's like, I know they're the best in the league. I would love to start them every week. They have everything you want, but I don't know.
That's also the first time I haven't seen a Justin Tucker or Brandon Aubrey be the first kicker off the board. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been one of those 2 guys. I mean, maybe somebody is related to Young Hoo Koo. You never know.
I don't know. These are the points of the draft where we go off the rails. But again, 14th round, team 1 can confidently make it up in these rounds 15 through 20 and find enough late round dart throws where I could look and be perfectly fine with Young Hoo Koo based on what they did. 2 names. You're high on Jalen Tolbert, but team 5 here, Rashid Shaheed and Brandon Cooks. Put aside your love for Tolbert. Does Cooks and Shaheed both present a nice little 13th and 14th round turn for team 5 as maybe 2 guys who could outperform their ADP?
I definitely think so. I mean, the thing with Dallas this year is they've done nothing. So we look at a guy like Cooks. I like Tolbert. Nothing wrong with that, I don't think. They clearly like him this year because he didn't really play in the preseason, which I always love.
Mm-hmm.
That means the team believes in him. They didn't deal him. They didn't deal for anybody. There's a week before the season starts, and it's not looking like they're making any moves, which is music to my ears for being a high Tolbert guy. But Cooks is going to be on the field a ton, and Dallas just lost another piece of their secondary. They seem like a team that's really pissed off outside of CeeDee Lamb, who just got paid. If they're in a division that Jaden Daniels, very exciting pick, guy that has a lot of potential, but that offense could be a lot better. Kingsbury's not going to be a slouch on offense. I'm not going to talk about the Eagles anymore, but we know that they're one of the best offenses in football. Giants, Malik Neighbors is going to bring some flash to that offense. So Dallas is going to be in more shootouts, and CeeDee Lamb can't catch every pass. Jake Ferguson, we like him as a player, but he's not the prototypical alpha in that offense that's going to get hundreds of targets. So somebody's got to catch the ball. And to me, Cooks, don't mind him at all. And Jalen Tolbert, love him because if somebody emerges as that and takes targets away from Jalen, Tolbert, why not one of those 2 guys? So they're 2 guys that I like targeting. I target Tolbert more because he's cheaper, but nothing wrong with Cooks either.
Can we bounce back to the 7th round? Because it feels like deja vu. I'll take you back to 2023. Aiden LaCory, Dave Tripoli hated Javonte Williams, said do not draft him. He has literally no knee. We don't know. They're already saying it's going to be taking time for him to recover. He might be on a poor offense. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks before the season start, and all of a sudden you and me are like, maybe we can start buying into Javonte Williams. We're hearing some good things. We were right all along. We doubted ourselves. This year, I think we were out. I can't speak for you. I believe we were both very low on Javonte Williams, even when he was getting drafted in the 9th, 10th round, high on Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime. The same thing's happening, though, overall, where Javonte Williams started off low, had a ton of negative reports, and then over the last month, some positivity trickles in, and he rises. He's now a 7th round pick, RB22. Is this going to be different than last year, or are we in Groundhog Day and the same thing is going to happen and Javonte Williams is going to be a disappointment and a waste of draft capital?
I don't trust Sean Payton. I like Javonte Williams. It seems like there's been a lot of positive press, regarding, him, losing weight, looking quicker, coming off that injury that pretty much, derailed him last year. But I just don't trust, Sean Payton, especially with that running back room. While I have, Javonte Williams was a 0% guy for me early in the season. But, as we got closer, he's definitely a guy I've added in some spots. Nothing crazy. I'm definitely going to be way, way underweight compared to the field. But I don't know. I just don't trust Sean Payton. I mean, if I'm taking Broncos this year, it's cheap. Guys that easily can be cut, because trusting Sean Payton could be just an absolute nightmare for fantasy owners this year. Everybody knows what he does to the running back position.
Dalvin Cook, 15th round Dalvin Cook in 2024.
We just talked about it. Come on.
Crazy, man.
Just take your money and burn it.
Crazy. I mean, you just cut him. Dalvin Cook it's just name value. You're just trotting out a name that people know. There's nothing there. It's just I'm trying to think. I feel like sometimes I do try not to over exaggerate.
The one thing I'll say about Dalvin Cook, it's not positive anyway. When you get to these, 14, 15, 16 and on rounds, these running backs get real dark.
Yes.
So, that 2% chance that it could happen, I guess you can cut him real quick if it's dusty, but I gotta take somebody with a little more flash than that. That's just me.
I was trying to say, I'm trying not to over exaggerate, but at least in recent memory, I can't think of a more dusty, irrelevant, overreactive signing that the fantasy community has kind of reacted to than Dalvin Cook. Like, I feel like Dalvin Cook needs to be treated like a no-name running back who was rightfully unsigned, and just there's nothing there. Terp, I have a broad question for you and a good one, and please chat too. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. You're obviously in, probably everyone in the chat, via their drafts, following Mojo, following sites, watching our streams, are in tune with the ADP. Of all the guys who have been big risers over the last couple of weeks, which one makes the least sense to you that they're rising?
Least sense that they're rising. Yeah, oh man, that's a good question. Can you scroll up the draft board for me, please?
Yeah, I should have prepped you a little better for that, but it popped into my head, and I think it's a good one, because there's obviously a lot of guys rising. I'm trying to see which one is
rising up draft boards that. One second. I would probably say. Oh man.
I have one, and it's surprising. You want me to hear?
You go first, because I'm kind of blanking right now.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of guys that
I have a hot take one. Brian Thomas Jr.
I know that's been your thing since day one. I like Brian Thomas
Jr. There's too much historical data that tells me that he's going to struggle. And I think while the usage in preseason has been enough to catch my eye, the actual overreaction to what was 3 preseason catches concerns me. When Evan Ingram is going to be there, Christian Kirk is going to be there. The Brian Thomas rise from, I think, where was a properly valued 10th, 11th round pick now into seeing him sometimes in the 7th is just a bit too much for me for a receiver who had a lot of question marks coming out of LSU and rightfully was priced in that 10th round. So he's the one for me. I mean, to be honest, Terp, your answer could very also be like we just talked, like Javonte. Like Javante's risen up like 2 rounds.
I have an answer, especially now.
Yeah.
Would be Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, he's a
For
guy
sure.
that I liked a lot and was worried about it, but like something about me just never clicked the button. Just for the guys that are around him. But now with P. Ryan there, and, the pass catching ability, he could have went anywhere he want. He was cut. He wasn't, he never got picked up. He pretty much said, I want to go to Kansas City. And Kansas City welcomed him with open arms. They didn't trust Carson Steele. There's no McKinnon there anymore, any of that good stuff. So, Pacheco is probably the guy that, I've seen him go as high as, mid-second round.
The Pacheco
he would probably
rise,
lead my list.
Pacheco rise even before P. Ryan signed, I think confused both of us. Because I think it got to the point, I don't think it was a product of Pacheco as much as it was a product of that weak third tier of running backs. And people push up Pacheco, they push up ETN, maybe they'll push up Josh Jacobs or Kyron because they want to get that running back because they don't want to wait on them. But no, that's a good one. So Pacheco and Brian Thomas are answers. In theory, two kind of our hotter takes.
It's also hard to answer that question because there hasn't been that many risers overall. I mean, like guys like JSN have moved up, but like we're talking about like the Terrace Marshalls and the Marquise Callaways of the world.
Yeah.
Like there hasn't been that many guys. Like 3-round differences to me isn't really that, like JSN we used earlier.
Yeah, we also the answer that makes sense is like I can't sit here and be like, oh, well, Jalen McMillan's rise doesn't make sense. Jalen McMillan's going in the 15th. By the way, I like Jalen McMillan, but like it doesn't make sense for it.
No,
like,
it's not a bad pick there. If it fails, it fails.
It has to be a top 7-8 round riser to be like consider like one that I don't agree with.
Here's a question for you, and it's still a tough question to ask, but just the opposite of your question.
Sure.
We'll just say in this draft only, a guy that you see in the top 10 rounds, forget the rounds below that because that's not really relevant.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that you look at, you're like, he should be going higher.
I'm moving it up.
Like, obviously, we talk about Brandon Ayuk, but like, we'll just say like from rounds 5 to 10. As
crazy as it sounds, because we've been known haters in the running back position, it's Josh Jacobs. I think I would take at this point, I'm taking him over Cook, Kyron Williams, Pacheco. Those names, like, I think he's due for a huge season. And then the receiver who should be going higher. That's tougher. I'm leaning. I don't know. The receivers, I have to admit, the receivers feel pretty properly priced, but can I give you, we've already talked about Ayuk, he should be, so I'm not going to say him. Can I give you one of Odunze or Allen? Can I do a cop out and give two?
You can absolutely do that.
I'm going to say Odunze or Keenan. I mean, it's dumb because they obviously you can't just say like both of them should be going higher, but like one of those guys is going to be, I think, in for a big season. I'll say Keenan. I'll stake him. I'll go Keenan Allen should be going higher in drafts. I think he has 1 year left in him at minimum, and he's going to be one of Caleb Williams' favorite targets. So I'm going to say for Josh Jacobs and Keenan Allen, which kind of goes against my drafting philosophy because those are two kind of, in some ways, older, less sexy guys. But Josh Jacobs and Keenan Allen, I think, should be going higher than they are in drafts.
I'm going to give you my answer in a minute, but let's answer Tyler's question.
We got a couple. We got a couple questions.
I just saw it pop up, and
he said redraft Jonathan Taylor or Kyron.
Can I pick neither? But if I had to, it would be Kyron.
Yeah.
And
really?
It's not. It comes down to where they're being drafted.
Yeah,
Kyron's
I would say Taylor still. I still like Taylor. The Kyron uncertainty is just,
as long as Anthony Richardson is the quarterback, it's Kyron. If you had, I would prefer none of them, but one or the other.
Let's also get to Jimmy Williams' question. He had a specific one for you. He said he had a
Will Shipley. I've been at him a bunch.
He had a lot of Will Shipley.
I think he's going to be the backup, and Gainwell's still going to be annoying, and I get all that, but I'm not overly worried about Ken Gainwell. If something does happen to Barkley, it might not be right away, but Shipley is, to me, just better than Gainwell.
Who did you say? I want to hear. Well, who was your answer? A guy in draft?
Deontay Johnson is my answer. Okay. I mean, 7th round makes so much sense. I mean, if Dave Canales is the quarterback whisperer that we all think he could be, and he's shown, why isn't Deontay Johnson going higher in drafts? Like,
Can I give you something spicy?
Go for it.
Nah, obviously the Falcons there. Obviously the Bucks won it last year. Panthers 12-1 to win the AFC South. Talks to me a little bit. It gives
not
me a
the
little
craziest
tingle.
thing. I mean, if you believe in Bryce Young, which pretty much nobody in the world does, it's in the range of possibilities.
I think that team's going to dramatically improve. And do I think they actually end up winning the division? No, but I think Young was. I mean, look how bad Trevor Lawrence was his rookie year with awful weapons, awful coaching staff. That's essentially what Bryce Young does. Now, is Bryce Young as physically gifted as Trevor Lawrence? No. But Canales is a QB whisperer by all accounts, a great leader who should inspire culture within the team. They improved dramatically the offensive line, got him a way better pass catchers. Obviously, Deontay Johnson at minimum is going to be a young quarterback's friend with his route running ability to get open.
Agree.
You still have Thielen there, and I'm not an Xavier Legette guy, but
neither am
depending
I.
on usage, like again, it's an improvement.
Jimmy said it perfectly. The O-line got a lot better.
And Legette is an improvement on what they had at minimum, even if he's just being used in kind of select packages. So I think the Panthers are going to improve. So I like the Deontay answer. I was actually, when I was paging through it, Deontay kind of popped in. Although I will say I think Deontay is kind of priced in where he should be, just because I do think their Panthers, despite improvement, I could see them being very run heavy, some more low scoring games. Now, the thing with I could see them not hiding Bryce Young, but Bryce Young's not going to let the ball rip. And another product of that is while Thielen was successful is because they would go down so early and be throwing the ball around and they'd wind up with 12 receptions. I think they're going to be in some closer games, which is a good thing for Chuba and Jonathan Brooks once Jonathan Brooks is healthy. But I like that Deontay answer. I mean, Deontay is a good receiver. He has sometimes a case of the drops, but I mean, he produced with some bad Steelers offenses, so I don't see him being that much worse. I'm trying to look at these last. Emmanuel Wilson off the board for you, Terp, in the 17th round. Between Dalvin and
Josh
Emmanuel
Jacobs,
Wilson.
It's just a bet against Josh Jacobs. I mean, and also you might get a free look in there.
Yeah.
I mean, these drafts with Emmanuel Wilson, if let's just say Lloyd's not ready for week one, Emmanuel Wilson could, get you 10, 12, 15 points on a team that needs running backs, as we saw throughout the draft. It makes a ton of sense because guess what? If Marshawn Lloyd's out there, guess where Emmanuel Wilson's going? He's getting waived, and you're taking another shot on somebody else, taking another lottery ticket.
Yeah.
And let's just say Marshawn Lloyd gets in there and gets hurt. Marshawn Lloyd could be getting sent out there. So at this point, you look at these running backs that are being drafted, and let's just call it what it is. They mostly stink. Like Jamal Williams, that's not really exciting anybody.
I'll forever be a Kendre Miller fan. You know how some
nobody else is, but yeah, I agree with you. So am I. He's a guy that I love his upside.
I brought him up for I do love Ian Harditz's shout out to Ian Harditz's Twitter presence, his Duke Johnson shtick. Kendre Miller might be mine. You'll never convince me that if Kendre Miller wasn't in the right situation that he would have been a really good running back. He just happened to land on a team that was coached by Dennis Allen. I'd love to see him traded or cut or signed. Terp, there's also someone mentioned a name in the chat while I was scrolling through. We talked about our random name game, just like we could talk about for hours on our show on Friday. Ronald Jones. Remember Ronald Jones?
I just saw another one. I know it wasn't, but just put Brandon Lloyd. There's another one. He didn't say it, but I saw the Lloyd, and I'm just like,
Brandon Lloyd. Brandon Lloyd was really good.
He was, and then just kind of fell off.
Got to ask, obviously, Tim Patrick cut your guy. I was looking back at our post. One of your guys from last year,
Marvin Mims.
18th round now. It's a literal free ticket dart throw. Obviously, Sean Payton is there, but maybe there's been some more encouraging signs than we've seen in 2 years of Marvin Mims. Is he a last 3-round click that you're liking now, or are you obviously I'm sure you might sprinkle him, but
yeah, why not? I mean, why not? I mean, I don't see any reason in a league where you can cut him. Let's just say things work out. I mean, you have all the potential in the world with him. Give me that, high upside. Obviously we saw, in small doses, and everybody loved him last year, but it's a pick that is fine in the 18th round of a fantasy pros or a main event because you can just cut him. He could be inactive week 1 for all we know. And then, hey, you move on. It doesn't hurt you. If somebody else, is a shiny new toy that comes up on waivers, get him.
From this 15th round on, are any of these running backs going to end up as a top 30 running back in fantasy for the year?
From what round on?
From Will Shipley on. Does a single one of them finish as a top 30 running back?
Will Shipley on. Nah, I don't see it. I mean,
like, who would even have the best chances? Maybe a better question.
The best chances probably would be 3 guys. Number 1, Cam Akers. If nobody believes in Damian Pierce, it seems.
And if Joe Mixon does fall off the cliff.
Yeah, that's Justice Hill. If, Derrick Henry gets hurt. Trey Sermon, it seems like a lot. Will Shipley makes sense too. Obviously if something happens to Barkley. The rest of these guys, if you're taking running backs in these drafts, to me, you just make a point from round 11 to 14, 15, just draft them in every round. Yeah, they're all lottery tickets and they're all being drafted that way for a reason, but I just don't see any reason to be in this running back range because, if you're drafting Miles Sanders, why? No. Kendrick Miller, you really going to hold on to him for 4 weeks? You're going to cut him before then? Because if that's the case, why are you drafting him? Jordan Mims, I see that. Maybe as a potential flyer that makes sense. Gainwell, no. Jamal Williams, what's best case scenario?
Carson Steele to me, not any football background, not any analytical reasoning, just purely like a guy who I could see having a good year and just being like a narrative guy that everyone loves. Like Carson Steele came out of nowhere, kind of like what Pacheco did his rookie year, right? Yeah. I could see history repeating itself in Carson Steele.
It's definitely in the range of possibilities, I guess.
P. Ryan hurt.
I have some Carson Steele, but yeah. No.
I'm going to be honest. I've been holding on to it since May. I don't even know. He doesn't really even consistently get drafted. Blake Watson is still the one, a bottom 3 round guy running back that I think has a chance to be something. It's Blake Watson, just because I think Sean Payton believes in him, and I think that matters. And he has intriguing upside. Terp, I gotta ask you about one more name here. Geno Smith, because we always talk about kind of late quarterbacks. We've talked about Levis. You and Bradley Stalder when drafting live discussed kind of the upside that Deshaun Watson presents. I disagree with it, but nonetheless, we talked about it. But Geno Smith is 2 years removed from, I believe, a top 5 quarterback finish. He was either 5 or 7. He has a new offensive coordinator, which ran the best offense in college football. He has DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, and Zach Charbonnet there as running backs in the backfield. That initial worry of maybe Sam Howell pushing him has dissipated as Sam Howell really struggled in the preseason. Levis is obviously both your and my guy as a late round, maybe backup quarterback dart throw. But is there an opportunity there for Geno to return to that surprise top 10 quarterback upside that he exhibited?
100%.
Do you have any Geno Smith shares?
Yes. I have some. I'm not sitting here saying I have a ton, but I do because, there's a lot to like there. Sam Howell clearly did nothing to push him. Coaching staff seems to be on board with it. Obviously we have the range of if they stink and they don't do well, they might just go to Howell and see if maybe he can turn it around. But I think that's just very unlikely. Metcalf, JSN, all those guys, they need Geno Smith to be the Geno Smith of 2 years ago. And I feel like, if you're taking a shot and you're looking at the end of the drafts, it's not the worst shot to take. In best ball, I'm into it. In manage, it's a little more tricky because I just like guys. If you're taking guys, I would rather take a player like Will Levis, who I obviously love, or if I'm going to go way, way down here, I'm going to gamble on a May or gamble on a Bo Nix, guys that have the rushing ability that, could, if everything works out with their offenses who are very suspect right now, could turn into something, a little bit more exciting.
I think the Giants' offense has obviously been heavily dissected, specifically Daniel Jones. Malik Neighbors has been immune to that despite worries and has risen into the second round, commonly getting drafted in the third. But I do feel like there is a sense of, even if that offense is not great and Daniel Jones struggles, there's opportunities for others to get work and be productive, especially if Neighbors is getting heavy coverage and the focus and almost the entire focus on defense, as he probably should be. Wan'Dale Robinson and Theo Johnson are going consistently 18th, 19th round. The Giants offense, we know it sucks, but in the chance, obviously, let's say Malik Neighbors hits on his ceiling, which would be great for everyone because everyone loves Malik Neighbors. There's a world with the Giants offense is better than people think, and maybe Daniel Jones returns a bit to his 2022 form, which would probably make a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson and Theo Johnson of value in drafts like this. Specifically,
one of the four
Wan'Dale.
guys. I like Wan'Dale the best out of all of them, but
Yeah.
one of the four guys between Robinson, Hyatt, Darius Slayton, and Theo Johnson is going to be a fantasy player that's going to be somewhat impactful this year. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to have wide receiver 1, 2, even 3 potential, but they're going to be a guy that you're going to need in a pinch, is going to perform for you. I think it's going to be Wan'Dale. He's the guy that I'm leaning toward personally, but one of these guys are definitely worth a speculation, because if you believe in Neighbors, that means that the offense is going to be better. And Daniel Jones, as scary as this sounds, is one of my highest owned quarterbacks, especially in best ball, because if you're doing a lot of 3 QB builds, him as your third quarterback, you could do way, way worse. Because if, just like Geno Smith, if 2 years ago turns into something, you could be sitting with just a major advantage over the field.
The thing with Daniel Jones is that I will give you, and it's not for a managed league like this, but it honestly could be. He has the rushing upside, which is sometimes a lot what matters when drafting quarterbacks, is finding the ones who can give you the rushing upside. And there is that kind of maybe apex turn for them where Malik Neighbors elevates Daniel Jones' play, Wan'Dale Robinson stays healthy, and the offense as a whole kind of improves. I don't think it's going to happen, but it takes you a minute to process, right? When you hear someone say Daniel Jones is one of my most owned, but when you consider the cost, the format, it does make sense. Terp, we got 2 picks left, but that was our last main event coverage of the year. For those
emotional stuff,
not emotional stuff,
because a little bit of emotions. I mean, come on, we've had a long, couple months here, and main event coverage has been our hottest. But we still have the Fantasy Pros on Tuesday, and then we obviously have the 10K League that we're going to be doing live in Vegas.
Yeah.
So, you're not going to get rid of us this early, but, it's coming to an end. And it's been a really successful year. We couldn't do it without the support of, obviously, the chat and all the upper, the Alex, the Daves, the Balkies, the Chris's, and everybody associated with the FFPC. So we thank all you guys from top to bottom. And it's been a nice run. Last main event, last Fantasy Pros will be coming Tuesday, and emotional stuff.
I'll say this. Obviously, the channel has seen tremendous growth. So we want to thank you for this, because, again, we do it just because we know me and Terp are both fantasy players. We both like, it's always fun seeing kind of drafts unfold live. And if me and Terp can inject kind of some banter into it while providing some brief analysis, we'd love to do that, and we're happy that the people are loving it. So please like and subscribe to the channel. As Terp said, we will be here Tuesday, I believe at 8:30 p.m. For one last Fantasy First Championship coverage, and then we are live in Las Vegas covering a $10,000 entry high society league. FFPC Main Event, let me go get the live numbers for you. Currently has probably right, maybe under by now. We shall see. 628 teams remain in the main event. So if you're looking to try and compete for that $1 million, go get in now. If you're playing the Fantasy Pros Championship, the $1 million on the line. Draft either tonight or tomorrow, because $50 will be donated to charity. Help out Casey to the Rescue, which travels the East Coast every 2 weeks, picks up dogs, saves them from kill shelters, and then transports them to partner shelters all over the country, which help them find loving homes. That's going to do it for myself, Aidan LaCorey, Dave Tripoli. Again, thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you to everyone who liked, subscribed, watched. We will see you guys on Tuesday night. Happy drafting. Go get your drafts in. Chase those $1 million grand prizes.
See you guys.